Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. Today's battle was sent in through the Discord server, so I'm going to use this opportunity to mention that if you're not yet in our Discord server, check the invite link in the description below and join in on the fun. Now in this battle, we're going to see Pippington lead the Greenskins into battle against the Warriors of Chaos, led by Salsicha. Now I do apologize if I mispronounce that. Wurzag, the Great Green Prophet, rides in on piggyback to lead the Greenskins, coming in with the Power of Dawa, Warpaint of Wurzag, Squiggly Beast, Bonewood Staff, Gaze of Mork, Here We Go, Foot of Gork, Waw, and Effigy of Degit. A Goblin Big Boss accompanies him on Wolfback. 2 units of Savage Orc Biggins will bring some heavy hitting in, as well as anti-large capabilities, and 3 units of Black Orcs will perform well against the typically heavily armored Warriors of Chaos infantry line. 4 units of Orc Boar Boy Biggins bring in a great deal of mobility alongside armor-piercing capabilities and anti-large strength, and the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers provide the ability to get range damage in from a safe distance, while Mogrub's Mangy Marauders do the same with the added benefit of armor-piercing missiles, an important distinction when facing off against the typically armored Chaos army. You may have noticed many of these units are immune to psychology, and that is a great tool against armies like the Warriors of Chaos, negating any fear or terror they might bring to the table, ensuring morale is able to stay higher than usual otherwise. The Warriors of Chaos are led by Kolic Suneater, accompanied by a Chaos Sorcerer of Death in the air with Spirit Leech and Fate of Buna. 5 units of Chaos Warriors with great weapons provide an extremely well-armored, armor-piercing infantry line. Unfortunately, that armor is negated by armor-piercing Black Orcs, and that armor-piercing is pointless against Savage Orcs. It's a tough pick that will go toe-to-toe with the average Greenskin build, but can come out on top with proper support. 2 units of Chaos Knights with Lances will help flank enemy infantry, able to shut down range support and cause morale damage through rear and flanking charges, while the Chaos Warhounds with Poison, ranked up to rank 2, will provide great support to the front lines and cavalry in the form of poison damage on the enemy. The Giant, meanwhile, can devastate enemy infantry, armored or not. Alright, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about layout, and it's actually kept pretty simple from both sides of the battlefield here. Starting off with the Greenskins, we have the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers and the Mangy Marauders up front, able to just go in and do some early harassment. The real front line, of course, consisting of these Black Orcs, and on either flank, these Savage Orc Biggins, just offset a little bit, able to push in for support, give some strength to these flanks, or, you know, if need be, come in from the sides, or even intercept some incoming cavalry as they are anti-large. Now, all the way at the back, though, we do have the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, all 4 of them, as well as Wurzag himself, and the Goblin Big Boss, able to, again, respond to any flanking maneuvers, you know, any cavalry coming in from the rear or the sides. These guys are anti-large, the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, and of course Wurzag, able to provide magical support as necessary, and the damage resistance if he chooses to go up front with the main army. Now, with the Warriors of Chaos, again, keeping it pretty simple as well, their front line consists of their Chaos Warriors with great weapons, of course. Right behind them, we have Kolic Suneater, as well as the Giant, able to push in and provide support, able to puncture right through and provide support wherever need be. These guys can cause a lot of damage, so these guys are strengthening the center right now, and the Chaos Sorcerer of Death up in the air in the middle as well, able to provide magical support. Now on either flank, on the right flank rather, we've got the Chaos Knight with Lances, and on the left flank we have the other unit of Chaos Knight with Lances, except these guys are supported by the Chaos Warhounds with Poison, and that's a good call. You want to try and get these guys into the rears, you know, into the sides, get that poison damage in there to provide some serious support to the front line, and they can also give chase to units like the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers because, again, they're fast, they'll shut down that distance, and naturally they can also cause a decent amount of damage because these guys have pretty low armor. So overall, the layouts are pretty simple, but the battle itself can, well, it gets pretty interesting. So let's go into full speed, and you'll see right away the 2 Wolf Rider units, the Wolf Rider Archer units, are pushing forward, and their first target, their first goal here, objective, is to take out the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, and that's a good call because magic needs to be taken care of nice and early. When the winds of magic are still flowing and they're recharging at a high rate, that's when you need to take care of magic. So they're going in to try and take care of the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, and you'll see over here the Chaos Knights is poking forward early on and then pulling back into some safety, and the Warhounds with Poison pushing in and actually giving chase to these units. And of course the Wolf Rider Archers and the Mangy Marauders do notice, and so they pull back into some safety, not before getting some shots off, doing very minimal damage, of course, not getting too much work in there, but they do pull back into some safety, and so these Chaos Warhounds as well, pulling back, not able to actually give chase into this clump of Black Orcs naturally. So a good play there, just enforcing a little bit of authority over the battlefield, forcing these guys to pull back and keeping the Chaos Sorcerer of Death largely unhurt. Meanwhile, you'll notice the flanking or the flank preparation going on here. These Orc Boar Boy Biggins, as well as the Goblin Big Boss and Wurzag pushing off to the right here, and these two Orc Boar Boy Biggins pushing off to the left here. Again, just wanting to shut down a flanking maneuver from either side. Now, the lines do charge into each other, and as they do so, you'll see as Kolick pushes off to the side here, these guys do need to be pulled away a little bit because Kolick is anti-large, so you have to be careful when you're dealing with Kolick on the other side of the field. Meanwhile, on the left over here, well, a couple of things going on right now. On the left over here, as seen from the Greenskins, Fate of Buna does go down on the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, and it will do a fair amount of damage. I should say, rather, it'll do a significant amount of damage. As these Chaos Knights with Lances are diving in, you'll see just how much damage goes through on these Orc Boar Boy Biggins. Now, over here, you'll see a little bit of magical support for the Greenskin front line as well. As the charges go in, as the counter charges and charges go in, Here We Go goes down, providing support to these Savage Orc Biggins, as well as these two Black Orc units, giving them a lot more opportunity to get some hits in and do a fair amount of damage to the Chaos Warriors with great weapons. Meanwhile, you'll see over here, coming in from the side, we have these Chaos Warriors with great weapons trying to outnumber these Savage Orc Biggins, get a decent amount of work done, as these guys are currently dealing with the Chaos Warriors with great weapons, this other unit over here, so wanting to get them engaged on this right side instead. And now, you'll see this charge does go in, and before the charge even meets, the Orc Boar Boy Biggins that were hit by the Fate of Buna are largely taken care of, almost down by 50% of their health. Unfortunately, though, the Chaos Knights with Lances are not anti-large, so in this engagement, the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, well, 2 units of them especially, will come out on top, but the Chaos Sorcerer of Death does dive in to provide some support and morale damage, which is probably more important in this situation. It is pretty risky, though, because he is in the air, so he does count as a large unit, so it is fairly risky, but it's a quintessential engagement to win there. Cavalry engagements are absolutely essential, especially if you want to shut down, coming from the rear later, and you want to make sure that your opponent isn't able to do the same. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see Kolick on the topic of flanking maneuvers. Kolick comes running in, I almost said riding in, but he comes running in and does a lot of work into these Savage Orc Biggins, and you'll see these Chaos Knights as well pushing in, and at this point, the Orc Boar Boy Biggins have to respond. They were initially pushing this way, scared of Kolick Sun Eater, but again, just pushing a little bit too far away, and now finally diving back in, trying to intercept the Chaos Knights with Lances. Of course, far too late, because the Chaos Knights with Lances are able to dive in and toss these Savage Orc Biggins around. Now, the Savage Orc Biggins are anti-large, but when they get hit from the rear with a great anti-infantry charge from these Chaos Knights, they're not going to be able to do too much. You'll see their morale collapses almost instantaneously, but the Orc Boar Boy Biggins are able to dive in and do a fair amount of damage in response as well. So you'll notice that the Chaos Knights with Lances, while they did shut down this unit of Savage Orc Biggins, the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, who now are under the influence of Here We Go, are able to come in and do a fair amount of damage themselves onto the Chaos Knights. Meanwhile, in the left flank here, you'll see this unit of Orc Boar Boy Biggins have been terrified off. So again, great use of magic and the Chaos Sorcerer of Death. Just in general, outside of magic as well. Fate of Buna bringing their health down significantly, already hurting their morale, and then, diving in on the charge, a very risky charge, and then flying in to actually get that fear and terror in, giving a fair amount of support. Meanwhile, you'll see here, these guys are getting some shots off, trying to shut down the Chaos Sorcerer of Death. Again, a great call, but Wurzag does come in with an extremely important play there, an extremely important magical play there. Over here again, you'll see the Savage Orc Biggins are, mostly taken care of. They are routing now, but the two Orc Boar Boy Biggins come in, hurt the Chaos Knights with Lances, but they do have to be careful of Kolick himself, of course. Now, back to this left flank as we continue in slow motion. You'll see the Chaos Knights with Lances. They've taken a fair amount of damage. The Orc Boar Boy Biggins, of course, are coming out on top. Wa does go down, giving them a lot of help, but this one spell, this Foot of Gork, is going to do a lot of work here. Take a look at this. That Chaos Knight, unit of Chaos Knights with Lances at about half health, Foot of Gork goes down, and those guys are completely destroyed. They're not surrendering, they're not running away, they have been killed, each and every one of them. So great Foot of Gork there. Unfortunately, it does do a fair amount of damage to the Orc Boar Boy Biggins as well, but in some ways it was well worth it, because now the Chaos Sorcerer of Death has to get out of there, and again, that cavalry advantage has been taken away from the Warriors of Chaos. So great spell there. It's unfortunate that the Orc Boar Boy Biggins take as much damage as they did, but a worthwhile sacrifice in my honest opinion. Now, you'll see here the Chaos Knights have sort of pulled off to the side, trying to get away from these Orc Boar Boy Biggins, and now the Orc Boar Boy Biggins are directly in conflict with Kolick Sun Eater, and Kolick's going to have a great time with that. He is anti-large, he causes a lot of damage, and you'll see those Orc Boar Boy Biggins are taking a lot of damage, so they do have to retreat. And meanwhile, the Giant over here has decided to dive into the center, causing a lot of damage among these Black Orcs, and you'll see here the right flank is seen from the Greenskins. These guys are pulling back, and Kolick is giving chase. He's able to cause a lot of trouble here, and that's a good call. Giving chase to these guys is not a bad idea at all. Meanwhile, up here you see the Goblin Big Bosses push forward to try and take care of these Chaos Warhounds with poison, get rid of that poison support as soon as possible. Not a bad call at all. And now these Goblin Wolf Rider Archers and the Mogrub's Mangy Marauders initially taking care of these Chaos Warhounds with poison, but then soon after deciding to target the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, who is currently routing, but of course routing doesn't mean dead, so you need to take care of that. That's a good call. Over here, meanwhile, you see Kolick decides, rather than giving chase to these cavalry units, to dive in to the front line, and that's not a terrible call. However, I would suggest actually sticking to these Orc Boar Boy Biggins, because these guys, they can cause a lot of trouble. If they're left free to come in from the flanks or to give chase to some of these routing units or you know, units that are poorly off, they can cause a lot of damage, and Kolick can really keep them scared. The Giant was already doing a lot of work on the front line, taking care of these Black Orcs who really couldn't do much against a Giant. So sending Kolick in there was actually a bad call. So now that actually gives the Orc Boar Boy Biggins confidence to come get a charge in, do a decent amount of damage to these Chaos Warriors over here, and get us surrounded on Kolick as well. Now, of course, Kolick doesn't care, but just a little bit of mismanagement there, allowing Kolick now to get surrounded. He was much better off just giving chase to these Orc Boar Boy Biggins, and you'll see as a result of those charges, some of those Orc Boar Boy Biggins do trickle out into some of these other Chaos Warriors, and that, again, gives them a little bit of a shake, and they decide to shatter. And of course, I should make note that the entirety of the Warriors of Chaos front line has given up. They're broken, they're routing, they're on their way out, they don't want to stick around. All we've got is Kolick, this unit of Chaos Warriors with great weapons, and the Giant. So you'll see that it was this right flank, as seen from the Greenskin perspective, that survived. The Chaos Warriors with great weapons really need that support. These guys had the support of cavalry and Kolick, and so they were able to survive and push through, whereas on the, well, the rest of the front line, without any support, the Warriors of Chaos are on their way out. Now, you'll notice as Wurzag is coming in, we do have a little spell going down here, Spirit Leech. So again, the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, since he wasn't killed, is now able to get Spirit Leech off on Wurzag, and again, doing a decent amount of damage. And you'll see here as the Goblin Big Boss is diving in, Wurzag is just getting into the situation, trying to get his War Paint effect in to try and get some damage resistance to support these guys, and also Effigy of Degit does go down on Kolick Sun Eater. So great movement there, taking care of the situation over here, and then pulling back and trying to provide some support to this very serious situation. Great use of Wurzag and his benefits through proximity. Goblin Big Boss as well, diving in there alongside Effigy of Degit, trying to take care of Kolick Sun Eater. Meanwhile, Kolick Sun Eater actually taking care of a lot of these cavalry units. Again, anti-large, a lot of damage, and he's swinging that weapon around like he's taking care of the enemy, let's just say that. Here we go, does go down, supporting all these guys, trying to get as much damage in as possible, but Kolick is coming out on top. He causes a lot of damage, he's very difficult to take out, and you'll see Gaze of Mork does go down. One of them landed, but the rest sort of flew off into the distance there, doing a little bit of damage there. Kind of a waste of magic, but it is what it is. But you'll see in response, Spirit Leech goes down on Wurzag once again, causing a decent amount of damage. And as you can see in the center here, now it is time for the Greenskins to surrender. They are all routing. A lot of them are terrified. Those that are susceptible to psychology, they are terrified. The Black Orcs don't want to fight Kolick. The Orc Boar Boy Biggins are scared right off. These guys are trying to come back into the fray. And meanwhile, you'll see these Chaos Warriors are now willing to fight again. So they are diving in and trying to shut down some units. And you'll see the Chaos Sorcerer of Death makes a fatal mistake here, literally speaking, dives into these Mogrub's Mangy Marauders, and while yes, these guys are ranged units, the Chaos Sorcerer will get bogged down. Wurzag is able to dive right in, and he's going to cause a lot of hurt for the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, so that was a big mistake there. I understand the thinking behind it, trying to shut down that ranged fire with a charge, and I recommend that every once in a while, but this was a bad time to do it because, of course, the Mangy Marauders are able to just leave. They are riding away, and Wurzag has shut down the Chaos Sorcerer of Death and is able to really get a lot of damage in there, and you'll see the Chaos Sorcerer of Death is not enjoying this, already beginning to rout. Wurzag does drop Wah as well to provide himself some help, but ultimately decides to pull back away from these Chaos Warriors with great weapons. And you'll see, meanwhile, these Greenskin units are starting to reform as, and again, as the Warriors of Chaos General makes a crucial mistake. When units are terrified or they're routing, give chase. Give chase. When they're terrified, you can chase them right off the field, and if you don't, they will return to fight. And when you've got anti-large units on the other side of the field, and a lot of your units that remain are large units, you need to give chase. And I'll say it one more time, if the enemy is largely routing or terrified, give chase. Unfortunately, they didn't, and now these guys are reforming, and though they're not, you know, at full health or anything, and they're not at full morale, there's still numbers on the field. And you'll see Kolick here diving in on these black orcs. Again, these guys are routing. These orc boar boy biggins trying to keep safe, need to stay away from Kolick, so Kolick does chase them off, but again, he wouldn't have to do this, go back and forth, if he just kept the chase early on. And now you'll see over here the Chaos Warhounds with poison, trying to get some damage in on Mogreb's Mangy Marauders, but these guys are able to now just dive in there because the Warhounds have already been damaged, their morale is low, so with both of these units diving in now, the Warhounds will be taken care of, already routing and dealt with. Meanwhile, over here you'll see the Goblin Big Boss has been having a fairly bad day. Wurzag now as well, being hit by Kolick Suneater, and Kolick really does need to take care of Wurzag. That leadership support is very helpful, especially considering Wurzag does give damage resistance, so Wurzag really does need to be shut down, chased and shut down. And you'll see again, these Orc Boar Boy Biggins, because they hadn't been taken care of or chased off the field early, they're able to come back and cause a little bit of damage over time to Kolick and the Giant. And that's the key here. It's not a matter of a bulk of damage, but slowly and over time able to just trickle in that damage, just like these Mangy Marauders and these Goblin Wolf Rider archers are doing right now. Just from a distance, you know, he's got scaly skin, so he has a little bit of missile resistance, but still, he's taking damage, and he's taking morale damage. Now, the Goblin Big Boss, unfortunately, taking some hurt in there as well, and Wurzag drops Effigy of Degit, again getting some damage in on Kolick Suneater. But unfortunately, you'll see Wurzag himself hit by Spirit Leech, and now hit by these Chaos Warriors with great weapons as well, so going blow for blow, Kolick dropping in health, Wurzag dropping in health as well, so you'll see it's very close to seeing both leaderships sort of fall apart. And again, another charge from this Orc Boar Boy Biggins doing a decent amount of hurt to Kolick Suneater, and now he is routing, he is on his way out, and you'll see that does a lot of morale damage, a massive shatter coming in from the bulk of the Warriors of Chaos units. The Giant decides to stick around and fight, of course, but Kolick is on his way out, as well as, you know, all these Chaos Warriors with great weapons. So a decent amount of back and forth there, and now sort of back on an even playing field. In fact, the balance of power says as much. Sort of on an even playing field, these Mangy Marauders and the Goblin Wolf Rider archers chasing Kolick away, and that's a great call. Again, you don't want something like Kolick coming back. Leadership support, a lot of damage, able to shut down gaps very quickly. You want to make sure that he's been taken care of. So, good call there, giving chase, trying to shut Kolick down. Meanwhile, the Giant here taking care of these Savage Orc Biggins, and you'll see Wurzag here throws another Gaze of Mork, gets a decent hit in there, but not doing a lot of damage, as the magic missiles tend not to, and now riding away, trying to stay safe from the Giant. And Kolick here continues to run away. He's not routing anymore, but he does need to stay safe from these two ranged units, so continues to run away, and these guys now trying to shut down this unit. Again, I think the thinking here was, let's try and get rid of the bulk of the enemy army, and that way the Giant might actually surrender due to a leadership drop. Unfortunately, Giants have extremely high leadership, so it is very difficult to do that unless, you know, they're fully surrounded, outnumbered, etc. And a bit of a mistake here by the Greenskins, pulling away from Kolick. So close to taking care of him. Now, he is in the woods, so those arrows wouldn't do as much work as they otherwise would, but at this point, they're sort of giving up the chase completely. They should have camped out over here or over here, you know, waited for him to poke out and then again open shots off. Makes sense not to waste ammunition while he's among the trees, but pulling away completely, allowing him to return, bad move there, very risky move there. And you'll see over here, these guys do shatter, so now the Chaos Warriors with great weapons are on their way out, and these guys now going to open fire on the Chaos Giant. Yes, he is a high threat unit, the Giant, so not a bad call, but again, you'll see Kolick back there, impending doom coming in from the rears of these guys. The Giant taking a fair amount of damage to morale and to health, but these guys are very low on ammunition, so they're not going to be able to do that work on their own. And you'll see, again, Kolick giving chase, one of these guys already out of ammunition, a couple more shots do go off, Giant still at about quarter health, so still able to get a lot of work done. Orc Boar Boy Biggins going in to respond to Kolick with a decent charge bonus. They'll do a decent amount of work against Kolick. They might bog him down. Wurzag coming in as well. He might still have another charge of Effigy of Degit. You never know. So Kolick again pulling off into some safety, not wanting to get bogged down or shot down by Wurzag or the Orc Boar Boy Biggins. And now Kolick giving chase to Mogreb's Mangy Marauders, and there you have it. Effigy of Degit goes down, causing Kolick some serious hurt, and now these guys are charging into melee. They want a piece of that wah. They're tired of firing in from range, so they get a decent surround in there, causing some decent pain to Kolick actually, and he is anti-large, so he's able to get a lot of work done. And you'll see over here these Goblin Wolf Rider archers actually surround the Chaos Giant as well, getting a little bit of melee practice in, but they let the Giant go, and now they're chasing after Kolick, and that's a great move. Remember, when leadership dies, it causes a lot more leadership damage than when leadership simply routes off. So trying to shut Kolick down, meanwhile keeping these Orc Boar Boy Biggins safe from the Giant, because if the Giant closes the gap, these guys might rout out of, you know, fear and terror. And of course Wurzag as well, trying to stay safe, doesn't want to die, because if Wurzag dies, that could be the end for the Greenskins. Now Kolick as well, just trying to stay alive, but of course he is being chased down. His speed doesn't match the speed of these Wolf Riders, so he is being chased down and getting a lot of, you know, trickle damage sort of pouring through. He has very little health left, and there you have it. A bunch of Wolf Rider archers without any ammunition were able to shut down Kolick Suneater. Beautiful, beautiful little flip there into death, and now it's all about this Giant, and it might seem like a done deal here, but that Giant is extremely frightening for the Greenskins. He's able to dive in, he's got fear and terror. These guys are not immune to psychology, so, you know, apart from Wurzag, everybody else is susceptible to fear and terror, and of course a swing of that club can take care of these Orc Boar Boy Biggins or these you know, Mogreb's Mangy Marauders. The Wolf Rider archers still have a chance of survival, but everybody else with one swing can very quickly be taken care of. And you can see here the Greenskins again trying to reform, trying to get their troops together. These guys off to the side here, as they are full morale, so they can stand on their own more or less, but these guys need some support. They need their, you know, flanks secured, they need leadership nearby, they need the damage resistance brought in by Wurzag, so trying to collect themselves. One final charge into the Chaos Giant, and we're just going to speed it up a touch here, and the Chaos Giant sort of stuck between two worlds, giving chase to these Wolf Riders. They run away, and on the flip side, if giving chase to these guys, they would run away. So sort of a tough spot there, and you'll see ultimately Effigy of Degit does go down, causing a fair amount of damage to the Chaos Giant. The Mangy Marauders dive in, get a decent surround there, poking and prodding away at the Giant. A quick swing of the club, doing a lot of work on the Orc Boar Boy Biggins. You'll see now the Wolf Rider archers as well dive in. Wah comes in from Wurzag, great timing, great call, a lot of damage on the Giant there. Starting to give up because he is surrounded, and there you go, the Shatter and the Pyrrhic victory for the Greenskins. What a great battle, and this battle really could have gone either way. Both armies were ready to surrender at one point or another. The Greenskins were able to regroup though, and they were able to take care of enemy leadership, and that made a huge difference at the end of the day. There was some good unit management from both sides of the field, and while the Warriors of Chaos used magic quite well, the Foot of Gork that destroyed an entire cavalry unit was a key factor in the Greenskin victory, as well as great use of Effigy of Degit, and at the same time, from the Warriors of Chaos, great use of the Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech. Beautiful, you know, magic and ability usage there, but compositionally, there were some issues with the Chaos Army. They relied far too heavily on a single unit type, and that it can be really susceptible to a well-balanced enemy line, and that's exactly what happened when cavalry couldn't come in for support. Now, with that said, as we saw on the right flank, as seen from the Greenskins, cavalry support made a huge difference, as that right flank was largely safe. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that homogeneous structure of the front line cost the Warriors of Chaos. As always, guys, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content, and keep sending in those battle replays. I've said it countless times, I think highlighting battles from the community is always nice. It's great to see how different generals are commanding their troops, and it's especially nice when we see some really intense play. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.